Hi, I'm Mario Evon, and you're listening to Talk Truth, a weekly edutainment podcast discussing the things that most people are afraid to, but from a Jamaican perspective. From relationships, sex and sexuality, to the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, in this space we speak about almost anything with the intention to inspire, educate, entertain, and create a fair and balanced space where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Folks, welcome to this next episode of Talk Truth. I'm your boy Mario Evon, and it's a pleasure to be here again. I have a fellow colleague and multi-potentialite here today, and someone who I was even on her podcast. And she goes by the name of Dr. Samantha Johnson. And today we're going to be speaking about her journey seeking clarity through 2020, probably before 2020, and some of the steps and the hacks and the different things that she discovered and developed to kind of stay on track. Hi, Sam. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, wow. It's a pleasure. I'm glad that I can be on the other side of the table this time. So, Samantha, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you love.
Okay, so I'm Samantha. I'm a medical doctor completing the year 2019. A lot of persons may also know me as the Layman's Doctor, which is I like to call it a brand now, that I started as a blog in 2018 and has now grown to something I never imagined now in 2021, where I have my own podcast, some YouTube videos. I do actually have a YouTube and still blogging, but it has given me the opportunity to meet a lot of persons like Mario, some other doctors, and it has also given me open doors to allow me to speak at events and work with different organizations. So things that I love, whoa. When I never considered myself a multi-potentialite until our own conversation,
Right, right.
but now I'm realizing there's so many things that I like. I like, of course, health education, but I'm really into, for example, nail art and doing my nails and being able to explore various creative things and going back to writing and going back to doing all that stuff. So I have some things. I have like a bucket list that I want to. I want to do pottery, and now I'm really exploring that side of myself where I'm doing more than just this doctor life and trying new things
Yeah.
and documenting quite a bit of it.
I love that. I love that. I'm glad to hear that too. I remember in our episode, I remember saying to you that you are a multi-potentialite, and then what that I hope you realize that what you're doing in our podcast is being like a media personality, being a journalist actually in some sort of way. And you're like, wow,
Yes.
you're absolutely right. Um, this topic I know is dear to you because it's your journey and it's also your perspective, but I'm sure people will pull positive things from it. I want you to paint a picture for me. Paint a picture of where you were, why you felt like you needed to seek clarity. So, what was the picture of Samantha that needed to change? Give me the old person or the old scenario
Okay.
and why it
Well,
wasn't good.
um, so for a very long time, I had a clear vision of I think what I wanted to do in medical school. You know, the
Right.
whole graduate, do my 2 years, figure out
That's
what,
internship,
yeah,
SHO.
exactly, figure out what I want to specialize in. You know, then apply, and so on.
Apply
But
to specialize. Yeah.
yes, apply to specialize. So when I started working, I always talk about 2019 being this year of change or maybe realization, and then 2020 being the year of change for me, if
Hmm.
I have to put titles on the chapters of my life. So in 2019, I started realizing back my love for advocacy and reaching out to not reaching out but advocating for persons and talking about certain gaps and injustices. So At that time, I felt as though, whoa, I have a plan for my life, but I'm not really feeling that plan. So during
Right.
that time, I was feeling very frustrated. I was in this new environment, and I felt like it wasn't where I wanted to be. I felt as though the vision that I had for my life for the next couple of years wasn't what it was, and I felt a little bit lost.
Right. So you weren't
And
quite aligned, eh?
exactly,
So
and
2019, you said it was a year of realization.
yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, and I described it to you, I felt as though I was swimming against the stream, against the
Mm-hmm.
current. So
Mm-hmm.
everything in my life just kind of felt hard, and I wasn't feeling like where I was
Fulfilled.
supposed to be. So towards the end of 2019 and more into 2020, when I started saying, you know what, I'm gonna talk about more things that I want to talk about on my social media platforms, especially on my blog, and then even with the start of my podcast. I started gearing more towards, I started feeling less and less like I was swimming against the current.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think subconsciously I was doing a lot of things to help me find where I wanted to be, but for a lot of it I wasn't being deliberate. A lot of it kind of felt accidental,
Right.
and I think I did some introspection at some point, and I said, okay, it's time for me to be deliberate and look at what is bothering me, and look at how it is that I can reimagine my life, and I can do things that actually make me feel like they're what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's when I started seeking out. Just it started really with having conversations with myself, and journaling became very, very important for
All
me.
right, Sam, I'm going to stop you right there. 'Cause I want you to jump into that stuff, but I want to ask you a few more questions before
Yes.
you start telling me some of the steps that you took. Tell me a little bit about you becoming a doctor. And the reason I'm asking these questions because a lot of times we end up in professions that we can do well and that we may like, but we may not love them, and we aren't sure we got there, but we end up there. Um, did you always want to become a doctor?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
I'm going to put in a low key plug, but
Yeah.
I do have a episode about my whole doctoring journey and
Right.
how I eventually became the layman's doctor on my podcast called
Okay.
Becoming a Layman's Doctor or something like that. But when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a child psychiatrist and
Mm-hmm.
specifically focus on research. And in order to become a psychiatrist,
You have to
I
do
have to,
psychology.
yeah, and you have to do medicine first.
Mm-hmm.
So for most of my life, that was the path I was going to take. And of course, my sister was a doctor, so that also um, was a factor that helped me as well.
Right.
Got into medical school, did a rotation in psychiatry, and I was saying, "Oh my gosh, I hate this." I just did not like psychiatry. So I had about a year or two in med school where I was saying, I don't want to do this anymore. But your parents are like, you need to finish your degree. So I said,
Right.
okay. In my penultimate year, which is fourth year, because it's 5 years of med school,
Mm-hmm.
had a course that I'm really grateful for, which is the community health course.
Yes.
And that's what gave me my introduction into primary care and my introduction, especially into public health. And it was at that moment I kind of rediscovered this passion and this love that I wanted to become, that made me want to become a doctor initially.
Right.
So, became the doctor, and so up to the point of graduation, I wanted to be a doctor. Even up to now, I still want to be a doctor, but what has changed is possibly the type of doctor I want to be, and learning
Right.
that you can still be a doctor, but there are many different ways they can be a doctor that we really might not be as exposed to in medical school. Because I always thought it was finish MBBS, go into a program, become a consultant.
Right. 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 So even within medicine, you felt like there was a path that people expected you to take.
Yes,
But the nice part about you is that at least you did what you wanted to do and are still doing what you wanted to do, but you're just trying to figure out in what form it's going to take for you.
yes.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. All right. Well, that's good to know. And there were the other things that you did growing up that you did well, but you didn't realize that they would have come back around later in your life, or like
Yeah,
any creative things or
I was thinking about that the other day. So funny you ask, but when I was in prep school and high school, I did a lot of public speaking.
yeah.
So I used to perform at JCDC and actually got a few medals for it in both
Yeah.
English, in both English and Spanish.
What school you were at?
And I went to St. Jago Prep.
Diego. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in high school, I again was interested in public speaking again, so I kind of tried things that would put me out of my comfort zone. So
Mm-hmm.
I entered a optimist competition. I tried that. I went two times because I never won the first year, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try again. Ended up winning again the second year, and then when I was in the orchestra, I did a lot of the writing and a lot of the presenting that the orchestra did, especially when we had events. And then just to talk about orchestra, of course, I always did music on and off,
What
but I never
instruments you
really,
were playing?
so I know how to, I learned the piano. I think I went up to like grade 5 or so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are 8 grades.
Right.
And but in high school I did more of the violin, and even when I went to university I still stayed with one of the orchestras, which is called the classical and jazz ensemble that they
Nice.
have at the university.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say I'm a great player, but
But you can play, yeah?
I'm very happy for the experience I've had learning how to play an instrument, and
Absolutely.
that community that I was a part of.
Yeah, it's a totally different space, and it's a unique experience that
Yeah.
you only know once you do it, right?
Exactly. And there was just a lot of other things that I did. As I said, I was always interested in advocacy. Really couldn't be a part of the national space until I was 18 or so. But
Yeah.
in high school, prefect, whatever, but I was a part of the United Nations and just some other little groups that I think were important to who I am now.
So public speaking, music, and you sound like your charity kind of aligned, and you like to be a team player to some extent, right?
Yes.
Would you care to share some of the advocacy spaces that you are passionate about?
Yes, of course. So that's kind of my whole thing now. I
Right.
was really, really, really lucky in 2020, in 20, remember 2010, wow. In 2010,
Mm-hmm.
um, meeting, I think that's when I met Javion Nelson, who has been
Right.
a wonderful friend to me
Mm-hmm.
um, over the years. And then in 2014, when I finished at Immaculate and started at university, I got involved with various groups. So I got involved with J Flag or
Mm-hmm.
Equality Jamaica,
Right.
and I got involved with them. I got
Tell people
involved.
what J flag represents in our space.
So J Flag does a lot of LGBT advocacy,
Right.
but when you go to a lot of their trainings, it's not just about LGBT advocacy. So it's a lot of health advocacy and just how to become an advocate in general.
Right.
So they have their specific focus, and over the years, it has changed and evolved. But it really gives you a nice base to become an advocate in this space. And advocacy in Jamaica is a lot about networking
Yeah.
and meeting other persons. So even through them, I was able to become a part of the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, which was a group of young people that taught you again how to become an advocate and expose you to various forums where you could literally learn skills and also showcase those skills and introduce you to parliament and policy making and things like that. And now I'm still a part of We Change, which is Women Empowerment for Change, where they anything that has to do with women, they're a part of. So now we're talking about abortion. We Change has always been a voice on that. Sexual
Yeah.
reproductive health rights, which for a lot of it affects women.
Right.
They're a part of that conversation, but also domestic violence, education, and employment. We Change is a part of that. And
Well,
I'm sure I'm forgetting some. I've done
they're going to
what
come back to you, man.
I've just what I have found important for me was to look at my interest areas and go out and seek it. So my interest in HIV advocacy, go to go to events that Jamaica Network for Seropositives have, and I've
Right.
been to a few trainings with them. So my entire relationship with advocacy when I was young, from 2014 to now, over those 6 or more years, has been about building my capacity and also being a part of communities that that I can be an addition to their voice. So it's not just all about me, 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 me.
Right. Right. You give back as well.
Yes. And it wasn't
Well,
on.
no, I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, I like that you spoke about other things that you function with in terms of advocacy, because I think that is part of your alignment. And I think maybe when I take you back now to the beginning, it will lead us back to this as well. I
Mm-hmm.
want to tell me what. So you were lost. You were feeling unmotivated. You were feeling flustered. You were not feeling great. So you decided you wanted to find help. What kind of YouTube videos were you searching for? What kind of things were you searching for
Okay.
to come out of that space?
It really was as simple as this. One of my biggest problems was I just felt like I just never had the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would Google stuff like, I would YouTube stuff like time management,
Yeah.
and particularly making plans for your days or for your weeks and how to do that. And there
Mm-hmm.
are lots of actually I do it on a separate YouTube page that's that is really just dedicated to building myself as a person and as a
Right.
brand, so that whenever I get suggestions, the suggestions are always aligned to that. And I'm someone who I always have to compartmentalize my things. So I didn't want it to be mixed up with my other YouTube video, that's my YouTube page that's just all about listening to music, watching stuff. So time
So you separated
management,
them. Mm-hmm.
yes. So time management, and I looked at a lot of videos that focused on meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then what I love about it is that I can do meditation for anxiety, meditation for motivation, meditation to help with sleep or relaxation,
Right. And
and
they all have different vibes and energies from them.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
and time durations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started looking more and more as myself and as myself as a brand and wanting to build the layman's doctor and things, I even started looking at videos like that. So videos on how to write blogs, videos on literally anything imaginable. So my
Mm-hmm.
main ones were really organizations and motivation, and a lot to do about looking within and looking within and getting answers from yourself and giving yourself the space to actually acknowledge the things that you really want. And there's so many videos out there. Um,
Well, I was going to say a lot of people say stuff like that, looking in and acknowledging what you want, but practically, how do you do that? Like,
okay,
do you are there questions you ask yourself? Do you sit down and close your eyes and put your hands in your lap and say, "What do I love?" How does it work?
okay, that's a great question and um, a great perspective that also persons have. And
'Cause you know when people say that, how them are going to put them are going to work on themselves, or them are
yes,
going to take some time out for work on
and
themselves. What is
self
working
care
on
and all that
yourself?
stuff.
Yeah, what is that?
And I'm a very practical person. So I have lived by this quote that James Clear has in his book Atomic Habits, that
Mm-hmm.
what we lack is not motivation, but we lack clarity.
Mm.
And what really helped me was actually this TikTok video that it
Mm-hmm.
says that whenever you want to do something, ask yourself why seven
Mm-hmm.
times, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll finally reach the answer that you're looking for. So,
Mm.
yes, I want to look into myself. I want to be more motivated. But what does that really mean? Why is it when you find it sounds so cliche, but when you find the reason why, or you find your why, you're just way more likely to get things done.
Right.
So, an example of it might be, why do I want to be better at time management? It's because I have goals I want to achieve. I'm feeling very flustered, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm feeling tired. So Wh- it now moves from, yes, you want to be better at time management, and it, instead of jumping from, okay, I'm going to schedule every single day of my life, I
Right.
now have the priority places where I want to look at. And the
Mm-hmm.
easiest one to tackle is, okay, I'm feeling tired. Why am I feeling tired? I'm working 60 hours a week, or 60 is nice, like, so,
I know, six
like
sound like a lot, but yeah, right. Six is
a
nice, right?
whole heap of hours a week. Maybe I'm on call, or I'm at work for 24 hours, 2 to 3 days out of the week. And
Right.
then when I come home, maybe I'm not, for one of my rotations, I just wasn't sleeping, right?
But a lot of
Um,
this you couldn't really control very well, could you?
no, so what I did, I can't focus on what I can't control. So I
Right.
focus on what I can.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, yes, in terms of the hours, when I can control that, like for example, if I don't have to work that many hours, I don't work them, right? But
Right.
you can't always do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I come home, maybe instead of winding down and going to sleep, I'm scrolling through TikTok or Twitter until 2 o'clock in the morning, have to wake up
Right.
6 o'clock. So
You curtail that.
yeah, so looking at those things now, I made my room into somewhere that I actually want to sleep. I put the phone down. Some phones have the feature where you can put a time limit on it,
Right.
and just
Right.
putting the phone away and winding down, making sure I'm relaxed. And that's where meditation became really important.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, for me, instead of saying this is my problem and this is my solution, you have to look at the different parts that you need to focus in on, and say, okay, what are some actionable steps that I can take? Because to me, self-care is more than just doing nails, going to the spa and whatnot.
Right.
Those help on a superficial level, but until you really quiet your mind and listen to what yourself is telling you and what your body is telling you, you're not going to reach those goals or form those habits that you want.
Making the mind quiet is very difficult for many people, and I
Yes.
think I like that sentence. I always like it because we are so busy mentally and in life too that we hardly quiet ourselves down.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the fact that you identified many things in your space. So your routines weren't always healthy. You were staying awake late on social media. You didn't like how your space supported your rest, and you changed them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this you say you found from just like either knowing it in your mind or checking videos and searching for information.
I really want
Which,
to point out here, because when we talk about quieting the mind, I feel like persons are going to listen to this and say, okay, Samantha, but how do I do that? How do
mm-hmm,
I quiet my mind?
mm-hmm,
And for me, there are a few things that I did that helped. In the mornings, now when I'm driving,
mm-hmm.
I drive in complete silence, and I actually
Yes.
talk to myself. But I don't talk to myself. I don't talk to myself like, oh, today's such a great day. No, I do. I say my affirmations and I say them out loud. I say
Mm,
the things I want in life out loud, because it, when you're talking to yourself and you start to ask yourself questions, because you say something out loud and you'll be like, that don't sound right. I don't really like that. So say for example, you know, just something arbitrary, like, okay, my day today, I'm going to go to work, then I'm going to drive into Kingston
mm,
because I have this chore to do, and then I'm going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to say, should I really go to Starbucks? I'm trying to cut down on sugars. I'm trying to cut down on dairy. Maybe instead of going to Starbucks, I should go to a juice bar, or not, or just skip it altogether.
right.
But I find that when you say things out loud, you give them life,
And
and
power.
yes, and you put them out into the space where you can actually see them and say, this is not really what I want. And then journaling is such an important tool. Um,
Yeah.
where it's like you're writing your thoughts down and you're writing a letter to yourself. But more importantly, with journaling, I reread my journal entries, and then I go back and I actually make notes and I actually say, this is not really what I want,
Do you
okay,
write or do you type?
I write, because writing is way more personal. So
Yeah.
I don't type. And
Yeah.
then I mind map. I love mind mapping. I have a
Mind
big
mapping is cool.
whiteboard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I write in the middle. Sometimes I just write Samantha, or I write the layman's doctor. and I write a
Mm-hmm.
circle and I just write my arrows and I just write the things that I want to touch on. So a lot of times for me, it goes from, okay, I'm going to mind map, then I'm going to journal, and then I'm going to do my affirmations and
Right.
talk to myself. So I've completely cut out where I don't listen to music when I'm driving. I take that 20 minutes that it takes for me to go to work to spend that time with myself
Mm-hmm.
and to not think about anything but me and improving myself and how I felt and how I feel. And then also acknowledging that if no one else is going to be kind and forgiving to myself, it has to be me out of
Absolutely.
everybody.
I'm really glad we're having this conversation because in my last solo podcast, I mentioned my morning routine, which has changed a lot since the pandemic, especially, and it's similar to yours. When I wake up, I actually stay in silence. I don't check social media if I don't have to, and I don't respond to WhatsApp messages. One of the first things I do, I read a book from Ian Law, which is Acts of Faith for People of Color, and it's a dated book, so it gives you like a quote. And then there's another one that I'm reading by Mark Nepo about awakenings, and that's more meditation. And I read my day for those two. Then I wake up and I go and walk or exercise. And then while I'm exercising, I'm listening to Joel Osteen because I like his message and it's succinct and it gets to the point. Then before I know it, I'm having breakfast, getting ready. And when I'm in the car, I'm listening to more podcasts. And if I choose music, I'm very specific about what I choose.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole routine is just so uplifting and empowering for me. It really makes my day start off at such a high point. My energy is set, and I never really used to set my energy until now.
Exactly.
And I didn't realize I had as much power in setting my energy. And I set it, and it dictates the day, and it's beautiful. It
Yeah,
really is.
we have, I think that's what a lot of us don't realize. We're very, you can, the things that you can control,
Right,
control them. You can control how you wake up in the mornings, what you
right,
do in the mornings, and it really sets the tone. It really does. Because no matter what comes at you in the day,
right,
a lot of times you're still okay inside because you woke up and you chose to be well aligned. You chose to
right,
focus on yourself. You chose to meditate.
right. I agree. You had mentioned to me in before we did the podcast that you sought some information from experts. You spoke with friends. What kind of conversations did you have with other people? And were these professionals or were they just people that are friends who you trust? Speak about a little bit about the people around you in terms of support system.
Okay, so most of them are friends that I trust,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a philosophy that friendships
Right,
should always add to your life, and it's not in a way to say that, oh, everybody, you use people and whatnot, but a lot of my friends have characteristics in them that I want to improve in myself.
right,
So, um, and in 2020, I really worked on improving my friendships because for a very long time, I was not showing my friends. I mean, yes, they knew that I cared about them and they knew that I loved them and stuff, but I really wasn't showing them just how much I valued them and how much they meant to me. And I was going through a lot of things by myself. And
right,
I was also wasn't being there for my friends in the way that I ought to have been. So for a lot of friends, I said to them, you know, hey, I know I haven't been the best friend I could have been, but I want to work on a relationship and I want to repair a relationship. And I just took that decision. So one friend in particular, even a conversation that we had on Friday, I said, can I call you in the morning? Some stuff really happened and I know that you're going to be the perfect person to understand what's going on. And I know I had spoken to you about the law of attraction and manifesting and affirmations.
right.
And for a lot of people, these things are like, oh, that little, it's a part of like witch TikTok or it's just
Yeah,
stars and crystals. But
that sigh about what is all this mumbo jumbo.
exactly. But I don't think we realize that the law of attraction exists in everything, in every religion, in every kind of practice.
Yeah,
For
man.
Christianity, it's in prayer, things like that. And she has done a lot of work in law of attraction and manifestation. And so I spoke to her and I said, this is what's going on in my life. I've gotten interested in this from one YouTuber, School of Affluence is
Right.
one of them that she talks a lot about it. And for one of the examples, like I was telling her my affirmations, I will, I will, I will. And she said, Sam, no, talk about them in present tense so that when you
Right.
talk about them, you see them as if it's happening, right?
So I am.
Yes. So it's like, I am healthy. And that way, when you're saying these things and do these things, when you have lunch and you're presented with, should I have a donut or should I have like a salad or a more
Right.
balanced
A more
meal?
balance. Right. Right.
You often choose a more balanced meal because healthy you is not in the future. Healthy you is
Is in the
in the
present.
present. So,
And health you is not gonna have a donut.
not right, no,
Not right now.
It's not gonna have a donut when presented with a
With an
more
option.
balanced meal. Like for lunch,
Right.
I'm gonna have a more filling, more balanced meal than say a soda and a donut that I
Right.
kind of scarf down. And
Right.
I'm and that really helps because it really puts into perspective and it said who I want to be is not in the future. It's more about who I'm becoming and who I am. And it goes back to even Atomic Habits again. I love that book so much. I didn't even finish it, where it speaks about making small steps has
Yeah.
these really huge results. And it's not really about setting a goal. The goal should be kind of a byproduct of the habits that you have. So going back to the I am healthy, if
Mm-hmm.
your goal is I want to lose 40 pounds, as soon as you lose 40 pounds, you might just go right back to gain it back because you didn't do a habit of changing how your relationship with food, for
Right.
example.
So as good as having the number value attached to it is in terms of documenting, it's probably even better to have a clear relationship.
Exactly, and changing a habit. And
Mm-hmm.
she made me talk about it in present tense. She also spoke about you breathe life into your affirmations. So don't be afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel as though you are unworthy
Right.
or you can't dream big. And then again, the importance of removing negatives. So instead of saying, she said she was basically talking about rewording it. So instead of saying, I don't want to be lazy or I'm
Right.
not a lazy person, because your mind can't conceptualize negatives. So if you think of
To
yourself
change
as,
that whole,
yeah,
right. To change that whole narrative.
and say I am an active person, I'm a
Right.
productive person, I'm a
Right.
person who likes to move about and exercise and whatnot. And that way, instead of, because when you say I'm not a lazy person, you cannot see a picture of yourself being
As
a couch
lazy.
potato.
Right. And then
But
reversing from that. But when you say I'm active, you see yourself as moving.
exactly. And
Right.
so she has been very influential in helping me with that. And that's really because in her own life, she had taken a lot of steps. And this is kind of like a philosophy that she lives by.
Mm-hmm.
And then, career wise, one of the reasons why I started a podcast series that I have, where I talk to doctors who are not really are no longer in the cookie cutter hospital system,
Right.
is because I wanted more information on that. And if you Google something like other things doctors can do, you might get some results, but it's not really
He's
geared
not.
towards
Right.
Jamaica.
Right. I was
So
honored to be a guest. Thank you.
it
Yeah, I know what you mean.
was
So,
really great having you.
yeah, no, it was
So
a good
then,
talk. So you wanted to dig deeper and kind of hear the stories of these doctors and what their lives are
exactly.
like. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there have been persons who have said they're not comfortable sharing the story on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but they're comfortable enough where we can have the conversation.
Right.
And so I'm able to have those conversations and actually bring it about, whether in my threads, in my own personal life, or probably in future blogs and talks and whatnot. So that has helped me realize very over 2020, it helped me realize that my journey as a doctor does not have to be predetermined,
Right.
right? I remember having a conversation and I asked someone who did a public health master's. I said, So did you specialize? And like, public health is a specialty. You're basically
Exactly.
a MO3 or MO4. And
Right.
I felt so embarrassed
Right.
because when we're in school,
If
you
you're not a gynecologist or a general surgeon, then you didn't specialize, eh?
exactly. So public health, even in and of itself, is always kind of seen as an adjunct, something that you do if you want maybe an administrative role as a
Right, right,
already
right.
consultant or senior registrar.
But not
And
treated as a specialty by some.
exactly. And so I felt very embarrassed to have asked, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then it really brought a perspective and said, wait, there are parts of medicine outside of this hospital clinical setting that exist. And I think a lot of doctors, especially new doctors,
Right.
feel maybe stuck and they're realizing I don't really want to be a gynae consultant that has to take calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, or come out of my bed at that time. And then even within that, outside of those that sounds so rude.
I know, right?
But
But yeah,
outside
in
of
the context. Mm-hmm.
the the specialties that you know about, there's
Mm-hmm.
so many more that exist. And I really wanted to give a voice to Jamaican doctors who have done things outside of the norm
And
to
to let people
show
know that you can carve out your own path in this thing.
exactly.
You don't have to walk down this train track or drive right down this track. You can do anything you want to.
Yeah. And I've gotten so many messages up to now from persons who are like, thank you so much for um,
For
giving
creating that
persons a
space for them.
voice.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You know.
it's been a really good journey. And I figured, why bother be selfish with it? Because other persons are seeking this
Yeah, man.
information
Yeah,
out as
man. And
well.
this
So
is what life is about, right? Life is about helping other people, especially when you got the help already. So we
exactly.
sh- so we share people's truths, just like what this conversation will do as well. What I want to do, I want to recap and ask a few more questions. So you have highlighted identifying your problems and being honest with yourself and trying to
Hmm.
figure out your whys. You mentioned meditation, journaling, and you do it the old-fashioned way where you write because writing is another sense, and when you write it, does something about putting it on paper is powerful.
Hmm.
You mentioned asking for help from friends or professional sources, doing your own research through books and YouTube and otherwise. Tell me about some books you've been reading. So you've mentioned Atomic Habits many times, so it's
Yeah,
clearly
because
good.
I haven't even finished the book,
Yeah, but
That's
what you get so far is amazing, right?
it's it's really, I was first introduced to it on a podcast.
Right,
And I mean, this was a podcast episode that I had watched, listened to years ago. I think I was still a student or had just finished. And
yeah,
I was like, okay, I need to buy this book. And
yeah. I
I
feel like
had
it's in my list. Yeah,
and it was from that podcast. I really wish I could remember the name of it, but it was years ago. I those little snippets of knowledge that he gave, his name is James Clear, that he gave on the podcast helped
right.
me to form habits that I still have up until now, making things very obvious. Um so one day I just said, you know what, let me just buy the book, because it had come back up. It had resurfaced in my mind. I have a list of books that I want to buy and read. So it had
Right.
resurfaced in my mind. I just felt, I don't know. It's like something in my mind said, Samantha, it's time for you to read the book. You are ready to accept what this book has to offer.
They always say now books present themselves when you are ready, then they'll reappear in your life. It's true. It's
Yeah,
really true.
that's
The,
literally
Al- the
how.
Alchemist was like that for me. The Alchemist was in the house for years. Then one day, I just read the Alchemist and it blew my mind. And I'm like, but this book has been
Yes,
staring at me for years.
but that's exactly how I felt. I felt like something was compelling me and saying, it's time. It's time for you to get this. So I bought the book, and when I'm very deliberate with how I read it. I read it right before bed, because
Right.
when you go to sleep, I want to think about it when I'm sleeping. I want to cement the information when I'm sleeping. And I only read maybe about 3 to 4 pages at a time. So I try to complete the thought. So whether the chapter or the sub chapter within the chapter.
Right.
That's how I read it, which is why I'm maybe about one third of the way through because
But it allows you to digest it, right?
exactly. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some persons might hate this, but I take my pen and I
You
write
write
with
in the
it.
book. And that
And
means that you're not doing this on a Kindle either. You're a paper book
so I
person as well.
bought a paper book and I have a book light so that I don't have to get up back after I finish it. I can just turn off the book light,
And rest it down.
exactly rest it down, and I'm able to go to sleep. And usually what happens is that is I'm I end up thinking about what I just read and how I can apply it to my life.
Before you go to bed, and then you might wake up thinking about it as well.
Yes. And even
Nice.
just the one third that I've read, I know wake up in the mornings and I make my bed and I put my laptop on my bed and I put the book on the bed because I know when I come home, I want to do a few hours of work on the Layman's Doctor and some other projects that I have. And
Mm-hmm.
when I go to bed, I know I want to read before I go to bed. So I make it a visual cue, and that's what the book talks about, making visual cues.
Which
So
will kind of propel you to doing an action.
exactly. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I've actually written
What,
down my habits, and
is that the
there's
Notion workbook, or that's different from the Notion workbook?
the no well,
What
I
is a
use my
Notion
Notion.
workbook?
I don't even know if it's called a Notion workbook, but I Notion is an app that you can. It's like a workspace app that you can
Right.
create a bunch of little, let's call them workbooks. And I created one that's for myself personally. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a home page, and on that homepage, I have things like a calendar. I have a to-do list. I have my affirmation for the day, and very important, what I'm grateful for the day. And I have a weekly planner, a daily planner, and then under my to-do list, I even have like my habits written out.
Right.
But the book has exercises, so and it goes back to you have to know what you want to change before you can change it. And it
Mm-hmm.
said write down all everything that you do, all the habits you have for a day. Circle the ones that you want to get rid of,
Mm-hmm.
or the ones that you're are either neutral, good or bad. And then on another column, you can talk about what you can replace it with or how you can change that habit,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
So I one of my things was I always went to bed without washing my face. I just could not be bothered to do a face routine. And what what was it? Was because it wasn't easy to do. I was thinking about doing a face routine when I was already too tired to get up out of bed. So my workspace is no longer on in my bed. It's even where I am now. So I don't even do podcasts on my bed anymore because
Right.
it's work. So I'm sitting in my workspace, which is literally on the floor right beside my bed with a little table.
But
That's
it's just not in the bed, which is important.
exactly. And
I
then
want. Mm-hmm.
so after that, and then I made doing my face routine easier by it's only three steps: a cleanse, and I moisturize and sunscreen. That's my face routine because that's really all I could manage. And I put all of them in one place. So I put it in the bathroom, so that right before I use the bathroom to go to bed, everything is right there for me to do it.
Right.
Or in the shower, so right as when I'm showering before bed, it's already right there for me to do it. And it's kind of like it's no longer difficult. It's already there, so I might as well do it.
Sam, this stuff always sounds so pretty in a podcast, which is just nice and packaged. And we also know that journeys are a continuum, so you're always improving. Were there any specific things you did to develop the discipline? So we're talking about visual cues,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly you didn't do all of these overnight. A lot of them
No,
probably happened in steps. So you probably had to create the workspace first before you started working in the workspace. So talk to me a little bit about building that discipline to make the tiny steps to start doing the habit.
I feel like I'm gonna be so controversial, but
Mm-hmm.
I really don't
You
believe.
just did it
I
like Nike,
no, no, no. I don't believe in discipline the way how we talk about discipline
right?
because I feel like we
Discipline
talk
sounds
about
like schedule and structure. That's what it sounds
yeah,
like based on
and
how I asked it.
it feels like and discipline also feels like saying no to something, you know. But when you're trying to stop eating candy, You don't go in a room and say you're disciplined because the candy is right in front of you and you're saying no to it. It's about removing it from you. So I've had a lot of failures, even up to this week. And I just get up back and say, you know what? How can I make it better? And that's how I have two whiteboards um, for two different reasons. One is for mind mapping, and one is so I can have what I want to do right there in my face. So,
Right.
and I had to learn that for me to do things, I need them to be right there. So I just make things easier for myself, and that's how I stay in quotations disciplined. I make them easier. I find that if I'm outside of my bedroom, which is something
Right.
I'm trying to work on, so I
Right.
stayed over my sister's house the other day, and because I didn't have the cues that I have at home, I didn't really want to do my nighttime routine. It felt more of a chore. Um, and so it wasn't as easy as if I'm at home. When I'm at home, it's an automatic thing. So my environment is a really important part of maintaining my habits. And what I'm trying to learn now is to carry that environment with me, if that
Outside
makes
of your
sense.
space, but it also shows that it's not easy to do all the time, and that
No, it really
it's a process. It's a process. Yeah, it's very hard to create that same meditative space in alternative spaces, like when you move into new spaces and you try to bring the habits into the new spaces. Very tricky.
exactly.
Which is
It
why a
is,
lot of people struggle because they're in houses with other people who have terrible habits because they don't live
yes.
alone. They have a lot of distractions, and sometimes it's hard to avoid food triggers and other triggers
So
because of the people.
I know I had spoken to you about my own food journey,
Right.
and I think it's a really good example. So of course I don't live alone. And when I was on going on duty, I like to pack for duty, and I like to make sure I have various snacks and stuff. But I found that my snacks, I would buy them for the month, but they would last a week, 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
what would happen is that I kept the bag of snacks, even no matter what color the bag was,
Right.
I kept them right beside my bed. I tried putting them in a dark bag so I couldn't see inside it. But it's on the side that I sleep on too. So I'd be lying in bed watching our YouTube and I say, oh, I feel kind of peckish.
Yeah.
One snack turns into two snacks turn into three snacks. So I said, after reading the book, I was like, you know what? Let me just put them somewhere else. And I was up to today, I had, when you go to the hotels, they give you these little drinks. So I
Right.
brought home a bunch of the drinks and I put them under the cupboard, in a cupboard that I don't really go in very often. I only go into it when I need to. And I went under there to pack out some groceries I got. I said, wait, wait, wait. I have this drink under here for like the longest while. And I maybe drank it maybe 3 weeks, a month after when I actually had it. And it was at that moment I really, really understood that it's not about saying no and resisting,
Right.
but it's just, if it's going to be in front of you, I'm going to want to do it. So
So
it
remove
works
the
for,
temptation.
exactly, it works for good and bad habits. And no, my snacks last me the time they're supposed to last me, just because of that simple act of moving it to a different location, a different room. And
Well,
just once you
well, yeah.
find those little
Mhm.
things, it takes a lot of trial and error. A
And
lot of
also
trial and error.
willpower. So maybe we won't use discipline like we traditionally use it, but there is definitely willpower there too because you have to
Hmm.
resist it. But I mean, not seeing it helps as well.
Yeah.
So
And you
Sam,
also have to be reminded of why you're resisting. The why is
the why is
important.
important. And people, there's another book. I don't know if you had read it, Sam, but it's called "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek. I had read that. It's a good read as well. And it is really about trying to start with your why, and that your why will dictate a lot of everything that you do in life. But I still struggle to find whys. Your why can change too. So that's
Yes.
so remember that why is not static. So but your why can change over time. So I think that has been my problem. My whys have changed. And every time it's time to find the whys again, it can
Hmm.
be a little tricky.
Try
Cause
asking yourself why 7 times.
why do I want to still make music? And I kind of know a lot of the answers to that, but there's so many levels to it. You can make it, but do you want it to be personal or do you want it to be commercial? And you have to ask all the whys for that. And it's just
Hmm.
deep. Why do I want to still be a doctor? I'm going to do it 7 times. I'm taking the advice. I'm doing it right after I come off this podcast. I want to know, asking you two final sets of questions just to come close to our end. And I want to know So you've made all these changes and you're on the journey. Where are you now?
Where am
So
I
not only where
now?
you were, where are you right now? If you were to just in a paragraph to summarize where you are now based on all these different things that you've done, all the clarity you've sought, and all the things you've attracted, and all the intentional and deliberate behavior you've made, where are you now?
I am this is a very difficult question,
Mm-hmm.
perfectly timed question because it's a question
Mm-hmm.
I've asked myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel as though I'm at the cusp of change. Um,
Right.
so where I am now, I'm right in the middle of do I continue working on who I am becoming and who I want to be and the person that I see myself to be, or do I go back into old habits? Because I've now reached a point where a lot of the changes that I want to make and a lot of the progress I want to make are becoming difficult, and I'm facing things that scare me,
Mm-hmm.
especially the fear of failure, the fear of change, and just not being comfortable anymore. And that's really where I am right now.
Right. That's
Right
honest
at
of you.
that junction where I say, okay, do I keep going? Or do I say, nah, this is fine. I'm good where I am. I'm just gonna continue where I am and live a fairly comfortable and content life. Or do I jump into this scary abyss and face my fears and see what's on the other side? That's in a
But
nutshell is
some
where I am.
you know there's no turning back.
Yeah, I know, but there's
But
still
that's how you feel though. That's how you feel
yes,
in your body. Like, should I just stay here? Is this enough? Or
because
do I continue for more? Yeah.
exactly, because honestly, Mario, like making a face routine and sticking to it, it's easy. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
huge life change. But you know, having new projects, working on new projects, sometimes I'm like, does it even make sense? Why bother? Is this needed? And should I try? Where I'm fairly comfortable, I have a nice job, I work in a great educational environment for me personally. And I could be happy. I could do this for the rest of my life. And those little coulds are what kind of holds on to you. Where you're like, okay, I could stay here and I can be content, or I could go after what scares me and take the next step and try something new. But in again, when I quiet my voice, quiet the voices in my head, and listen to what I have to say,
Yeah.
I already know the answer, and we all know the answers. We're just often very afraid to say
Yeah.
them out loud.
Fear fear is what prevents us from going towards the answers. Yes. All
Yes.
right. Give me your final words that you want to share with our listeners. We've shared a lot and we've discussed a lot. What do you want to tell people who feel lost like you were? What are your final words of encouragement?
Ooh, my final words of encouragement is let me think about this for a little bit. You can
I
always
know.
chop this part out, the
You
waiting
know,
part.
we're not chopping it out. We will make it think. But it's hard. I want you to think. Take the space to think. Because you know, I always think about the listeners, and I know that when people are listening to this, they're thinking about their lives and how they can relate it to their lives and how they can apply it to their lives. Like for me, I know right now I'm thinking about ask yourself why 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's at the forefront of my mind, and I'm going to do it as we end because it is often where I get stuck. And for somebody like me who seems to have it all together, people don't think people like myself will be stuck. Cause we seem
Mm-hmm.
like we might know what we're doing, but me just as confused as, as someone else. um,
Exactly.
this is not your voice, but I'll tell them one thing. I think I always tell people just start. That's one of
Yes.
my bits of advice. Just start. That's my first one. I'm
I
gonna
w-
give you the
I would say my last parting words are take the time to to step back, look at your life, and see if you are where you want to be, and if the things that you're doing are answering your true desires. Um, because it's so easy to get caught in the routine of daily life where we just wake up, go to work, come home, wake up, go to work, come home, get married, have kids, and you don't want when you're at 60 and you finally slow down and stop, you realize that you, in quotations, wasted away your life. So no matter at what point you are, just stop, take a moment, look back and look at your life, and then ask yourself the question and be open and honest with yourself. Even if it's hard, is this where I want to be? And am I the person who I want to be right now? And based on your answer, you know what your next steps are. And it sounds so simple, but it can be such a difficult, difficult thing to do.
I have nothing more to say, Sam. Those are the closing words of this episode, and you just drape me up all in our one closing. You drape me,
Drape up
and
myself.
you drape me, and you encourage me all in one go. And thank you for those closing words, because that's exactly it. Take the time. And 2020, I think, gave us time. It
Yes,
forced us to take the time that we weren't taking, and I think that's why so many of us have new awakenings in this new year. Samantha Johnson, doctor, podcaster, soon to be maybe nail designer. Continue to explore the world as you are. I think you're making great progress and taking wonderful steps. Thank you for
thank
being on Talk Truth,
you.
and tell people how them can find you. Give them all your social media and
Oh,
things.
I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok actually too.
Yeah.
YouTube. I think it's so much easier to just go on my link tree. But
Yes.
my Twitter is at the Layman's DR. That's also my
Hmm.
Instagram. And then I
Hmm.
also have my personal Instagram where you can really get to know me is at the Samantha Johnson. And if you just want to get a link to all my socials, my blog, which is thelaymansdoctor.com, you can check out my link tree, which is linktr.ee/ the layman's dr, and you can find all my socials. You are free to reach out to me. I'm very responsive in DMs and emails, so I'm always open for a conversation as well.
Yes, folks, hit her up, and I'll put all of her information in my show notes. So support Samantha Johnson, a layman's doctor, and so much more. Thank you again, Samantha, for being on Talk Truth. While you're here, I'm just going to close out this podcast. So, folks, remember to listen to Talk Truth on your favorite podcasting app. You can follow us on socials at TLKTRTH. We're now at Talk Truth without the vowels. And you can shoot us an email at talktruthja.com. That includes the vowels. Or our website, talktruthja. Sorry, I said talktruthja.com. I meant talktruthja at gmail.com, or the website, talktruthja.com. Thank you so much for listening. This is Talk Truth, a place where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.